Hello and welcome to this MSP Voice webinar. Today I am pleased to be joined by Maddie Martin with Smith.ai. Sorry about that. This webinar series put on by MSP Voice is brought to you by our sponsor, MSP 360. So if you have any needs in terms of backup to the cloud, definitely check out msp360.com for all things backup and backup to the cloud. So again, today's webinar, Smith.ai, Maddie Martin. Maddie, take it away. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Smith.
Thanks so much, Doug. And thanks and welcome everyone. We're going to be talking today about converting more MSP leads and gaining more time for high value work. We're going to really focus on outsourcing and automation to facilitate that growth. So I am Maddie Martin. I am the head of growth and education for Smith.ai. We are a human-powered and AI-backed virtual receptionist service for live calls and web chat, and actually now text messaging, and very soon, depending on when you hear this, if you're listening to a recording, Facebook messaging as well. We've handled over 1 million conversations, so we really have dialed in, particularly for smaller businesses, the most effective communication methods and workflows for responding to leads and clients. So if you're interested after this webinar, visit us at Smith.ai and you can engage with us and also our website chat right there. So let's talk about the goals and objectives today, because I really want to focus on the education component of what we're seeing in the field, so to speak, and bring that to you so you can immediately implement some of these best practices. We will talk about Smith.ai at the end specifically, but the majority of this presentation is really going to focus on the techniques and best practices. But feel free, Doug will interrupt me if there are any questions that come through, or we can save a few to the end, your preference. I will also include my email at the very end so that you can contact me for follow-up. So let's talk about the learning goals today. Really focused on identifying common barriers and setbacks to growth that we see very often. Not only growth, but also efficiency. So you can be growing, but your margins and your bandwidth is really low. So we'll be talking about that for your MSP, and then also considerations for your clients' businesses as well. There are a lot of examples in this webinar, specifically for law firm clients. We choose that as an example because it is a highly specialized and expensive service for consumers, meaning the lawyer's time is extremely precious and there's a high opportunity cost there. So they get a lot of benefit, as do other high value professional services firms, just like an IT firm or MSP. So we like to use that as an example, for ways to have these conversations with your clients as well, because Smith.ai does offer referral programs, and you can give access to this outsourcing to your clients as a service, as well as using it in-house yourself. So the second thing here is learning the core disciplines of lead capture, screening, and conversion, tailored to the demands of the modern client. So what does that client right now want? And that doesn't just mean millennials, it's everybody. Then we'll be discussing the basics for implementing kind of the best lead conversion and communication systems right off the bat, things that are easy, cheap, don't take a lot of bandwidth to implement. And then advanced techniques once you're sort of already with a good foundation. We'll talk also about the specific game plan for action steps, so you know the next steps and processes to sort of get you into a place where your communications are highly effective and you're utilizing your resources as best as possible, which does have incredible impact on your profit margins, your marketing results, etc. So the core topics that we're going to focus on here, you'll come away with how to identify whether your business is ready for outsourced communication teams and some automation around that, how to delegate tasks to these teams, how to better triage support tickets and get more out of your technical staff. So not bogging them down on all the basic sort of routing that we so often see. You know, we'll talk about personality types also, but oftentimes people who are in skilled positions are not always, client facing or, introverts versus extroverts, that actually plays a big role in growth and success of a company if you're putting people into positions where they're really not best suited or comfortable based on their skill sets and character traits that they may have. So we'll talk a little bit about that as an outsourcing element. And then also how to better capture, qualify, and convert new leads by phone and on your website. And phone really means calls and texts, because we see that people are preferring to use their thumbs rather than their tongues, so to speak, to communicate and to multitask when contacting businesses. So we'll talk about some trends there as well. Then we'll discuss best practices to build a knowledge base that addresses leads and clients' common questions and how you can actually relay that knowledge base instantly with chat, and best practices for getting the most bang for your buck out of these services. So are you using them to the best of the software and services ability? I think that's something that comes up really often for us as a service provider, and is also an integration partner with software like CRM and calendaring and billing systems. We so often see people not utilizing these services fully, even though it doesn't cost extra to maximize the utilization. A really good example of that is I was on Facebook in a group the other day, and someone was mentioning they're having trouble with collections, for example. If you're using a receptionist service like Smith.ai, we actually offer collection services that don't take a 30 to 50% fee, right? So you're just paying the same per call cost, and you're getting that late invoice, past due invoice paid also by a neutral third party. So there are a lot of benefits that are sort of hidden underneath the surface of these services. And if you've thought of them as basic answering and receptionist services, I would really encourage you to take a deep dive into the features of what you're currently using, whether it's a calendaring or a CRM or intake marketing system. Advance those automations in your workflows so that you can get the most bang for your buck. Now, what we see with the modern consumer, and this is trending up, I mean, these stats, they change almost every day, but it is a significant majority of people who prefer not only text and chat-based communications, but also are expecting an instant response. So 82% of consumers are expecting an instant response to a service inquiry that's a new client or lead, versus 89% are expecting an instant response to a service issue. 73% of consumers prefer live chat over phone, and 93% of converted leads are contacted by the sixth call attempt. So in terms of expectations, what that means is that people are not expecting that it's on their plate if you don't reach them, that they're going to have to reach back out to you. You often have to have a high confidence that you have exhausted all attempts to reach them. Try and reach them 6 times on average to exhaust all possible opportunity that they want to work with you or not. Otherwise, if you stop before 6 attempts, you've only made 1 call, you've left a voicemail, you sent an email, you think you're done, what we find is that the modern consumer actually is expecting and converts after as many as 6. You have a high confidence. After that, you sort of taper off and you don't get as much bang for your buck.
So my single call or email follow-up is not good enough. You got to keep it on my schedule to say, hey, don't forget to follow up again if I haven't heard anything back.
It's not only not good enough, but it's so dang easy to use one of these email automation tools that you just if you've written that first email, Doug, all you have to do is copy and paste it into the next sequence of the drip. Say that you're going to wait, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks. It depends if it's small business or enterprise or what client sort of decision-making cycle is. And based on that period of time that most clients sort of make a decision, for us, I mean, it can be weeks or months. We actually have a very long drip that we use. And then you just copy and paste that initial email, and that can be slightly modified. You have different value props in terms of, getting things off your plate and implementing those systems that you've always wanted in your small business that your MSP can provide. Data security, like how many different value props can you think of, like
Yeah.
off the top of your head, a ton, right? Each one of those is a topic for an email. And maybe you've got a little promo or incentive or something about a free assessment that you include in there, a clear call to action. And frankly, plain text works better for converting anyway. So you don't even need to enlist like a fancy designer. So many people don't have those on their teams, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how easy it is. And also, if you have that language, that's also your sort of call script or voicemail, like that copy becomes your guide for any person doing sales for your business, including you. You have that core value prop that extends beyond email to phone and even text messaging, because there are really cool programs that we'll talk about that you can text and nurture clients, nurture leads through text message. So what we see here though is that, like, what is all of this, like if we go back to the previous slide, what is all of this demand? And it is very demanding, right? Like people expect an instant response from you and you're like, I need to get work done during the day. It means that there are a lot of interruptions sometimes, and the interruptions cause a productivity gap. So you've got 23 minutes is the recovery time on average to get back to what you're doing after an interruption. It's not even the duration of the interruption itself. You've got 2 out of 3 potential clients for professional services businesses that say that their decision to hire is most influenced by a small business's responsiveness to their first call or email. So they're like, if you don't pick up, I'm moving on to the next one, even if it's a referral. And at the same time, almost 60% don't hire someone they had a consult with. So now we're in like sort of uh-oh territory. Like you're spending time not only scheduling that consult, having that consult, and then they're not going to hire you anyway. So screening becomes extremely important in this process so that you don't pull your hair out when you spend all this time trying to nurture leads who are actually maybe not a good fit for your business. They don't necessarily know what you do when they contact you, and you have to steer that conversation. 86%, going back to what I said before about collections, 86% is the average amount of earnings that's ever collected for professional services businesses. Now that goes up if you're obviously in a subscription recurring revenue model. But if you are doing any sort of flat rate work, like if you're not for every single client collecting credit card payment, then you are probably able to unlock, to have a positive spin on it, immediate earnings capture just by adding that one thing. So solution to these dilemmas, like what I focus on is really cost-effective and efficient systems. And then once you sort of get these, affordable, easy ones in place, sky's the limit. Like there's always like enterprise class, whatever you need. But to get started here, it really doesn't cost a lot of money. And we're looking at routing and tracking your communications better, filtering leads, scheduling consults after they've been filtered and screened, then the intake or assessment, then we're going to talk about payments, and then referrals, actually a really important part of the conversion and lead generation process that really works behind the scenes for growth that you can't possibly do all on your own. So when we look at these systems, what are we evaluating? Like obviously cost is important, but I would also say that cost without commitment is really critical. Like if you're a smaller MSP and you're looking for new technology to add and you sign a 3-year contract, like that's really a risky behavior. So I would encourage you, take advantage of free trials, negotiate contracts down to shorter terms if you possibly can, and try and get referral benefits and anything that can cut down that cost if you do have to sign a contract for a longer term.
Yeah, that's a good point on the commitment, because if someone says, well, we require at X many months or so many years commitment before you can even start using the service, that should be a red flag in my book.
It definitely is. And you'd be shocked by how many services are still doing that, but the trend is increasingly month to month, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
SaaS that we're using, and many free trials. So I would say, you know, it is absolutely for me a red flag to have like a long-term commitment, and I always push back on it. And
Yeah.
if it comes back on me, fine, but you know, at least I tried. You know, what's the worst? This is always what I say, and this is in my current job or when I'm teaching. Like, what's the worst that someone can say to you? And just, no. Like, all right, well, at least you asked.
Yeah.
So it should be customizable also. So like, can you grow with this software or not? Like, if you're going to go with a solution that's free, but it's only feasible for one user, then like it's really not free because you're expecting to add a team member in 2020 or whatever every quarter in 2020. So consider like your immediate growth objectives and envision hitting them, and what does that look like with your current like software set and your service set. And are you going to be able to afford them at the different tier pricing that's required? Because something like, I mean, I'm sure, Doug, you know this, like with webinar software, you can get really expensive as you scale it out. But for small plans, it can be extremely affordable.
Yeah.
So look at those tiers early on before you adopt. And then it should be easy to use and monitor, which kind of includes the next point about being comprehensive as well. Because if you have to constantly be digging into a million different builds because you're using all this software that's hyper specialized for each individual task, like, God help me. You know, like, this is one of the things I love about Smith.ai is that we have this team that built web chat on top of the phone receptionist. Like, absolutely, that's a no-brainer, because you should have, sorry, I've got a trigger finger. You should have like one outsourced service that communicates on your behalf, not a million different ones that are trying to follow the same script and doing so inconsistently. So it's less for you to monitor when you have more comprehensive tools at your disposal, and that goes with marketing software and agencies as well. So like, whenever I look at marketing software, I want it to be able to connect and broadcast to my CRM, my leads, the clients, transactional, you know, messaging, as well as newsletters and marketing campaigns. I want to be able to connect that list like I can with MailChimp to retargeting on Facebook because they have an integration. Like, that makes life way easier for me, and it makes me much better at my job because I can do things more holistically. Also, if you're using services and you're not giving them discretion, sorry, man, I can't think left and right. There we go. So if you are using these services and you're not giving them discretion, like human services, you're saying you only answer the phone, for example, you take a message, you don't schedule for me, you don't screen my leads. Like, oftentimes I find it's not a matter of operational capacity or the person actually can functionally schedule time on your calendar. We know there's Calendly, which is free. It's more a matter of like your comfort zone. So I really encourage you, like, it is way worse to have a service you're paying for that's glorified voicemail, for example, when you could be getting an appointment scheduled so that lead stops searching for a service provider, and like, you've basically locked them in or at least press pause on their search until you talk to them. If you're not doing that, you're paying for something that you could be getting for free with voicemail. Like, it's marginally not that beneficial. So think about delegating way beyond your comfort zone, and what the reason is if you're not. It's one thing if it's technical skills, but it is a completely different thing, and you have to get out of that technical skill mindset often to delegate some of these operational marketing and communication tasks. The last thing that I'll mention is also integration. So if you don't have services that are like really comprehensive, they should have an open API. They should be able to talk to your other systems through Zapier. They may have direct native integrations, or they may have some open API you can connect through Zapier. But whatever the case may be, a system that doesn't talk to your other systems is just going to create more work for you in the long run. When we're looking at how potential clients are handled, keep in mind that we're talking about, you know, different levels of specialization here. There are sort of answering services and receptionists. There are even intake specialists. If we take a page from a lawyer's book, like, do you have really a good specialist before someone books an assessment who knows your criteria and can really effectively screen that lead in and out? And there's also AI. So how do you programmatically respond to common questions? And that's something that can be very effective. So when we look at, high responsiveness as a function of not just time, but also content, we see that being responsive means, yes, you're really fast to respond, but you're also delivering the right content in the right channel where your leads and clients are. And it really comes down to human and machine intelligence. So when you've got the human intelligence, that's like that email drip we're talking about, right? Like you're going to write something that resonates because you know your business and what your clients need and what really has sold people in the past that brings them over the edge into, being a client. You say when that drip stops, the timeline for decision making for potential clients. Now the machine intelligence, the best example that I actually have for this, I could talk about AI chatbot, but my favorite example is in MailChimp, again, where they tell me when I should send my emails. Why? Because they send a whole heck of a lot more emails than I do. And they can use all their big data, totally anonymized, yet not anonymized because that person's probably in a bunch of other databases because MailChimp is a huge company. And they know when that person opens their emails most. And they can actually personalize things to that extent where if I give them 24 hours notice, they will say, we will send this email to all of these people in your list based on their highest open rate trends. That is incredibly powerful. I'm never going to be able to capture that data on my own with my own intelligence. There's no way. So that to me is a really powerful case for using these systems that are sort of bigger business like MailChimp, capitalize on the power of their network, so to speak. Here is the lead conversion flow, and sorry, capture, the E got dropped to the bottom line. We're moving from the left to the right here. So we know that the sources that are coming through may be paid or organic. They may be meaty, like content and lead magnets and landing pages, or they may be very simple and effective, like online reviews or face-to-face referrals. It may even be technical, like link building, that's helping to bring your MSP to the top of or high up on Google search results. What happens when someone finds you on one of those channels is that they're going to use one of these contact methods, primarily phone, email, text, website chat, and web chat can include Facebook Messenger, etc. Now, what we see is that there are a number of different ways to respond. It can be you, the owner operator or a technician that you've repurposed to be the, receptionist, which we so often see. And if you're doing that, I don't blame you, but there is a happier way. There's a receptionist services, obviously, and then there's also AI. So how do you automatically respond? And really AI on chat is much more effective than on voice right now. People don't love those prompts. It makes it feel like you're calling a big Verizon or airline or telecom company. The AI that we see with the most effective response method is really text-based. So SMS, Facebook Messenger, chat, being able to identify common keywords and intent and then respond accordingly based on sort of program directions. Then what happens is the qualification stage, right? Making sure that we're increasing that ratio from like 60% of people with consults and assessments not converting to clients. Like we want to see a lot more of that, at least flipping into the majority, right? When that screening happens, when you're doing this like basic intake and assessment before actually an assessment is even scheduled, that qualification process is going to drop you either above or below the line. So if they're good leads, they meet your criteria for a good potential client, then they move on to this like nurturing funnel, or if they don't need any nurturing and they're ready to go, like, scheduling them for an assessment or attempting a live transfer or just handling it right then and there. What happens next is obviously an assessment, an agreement, and a new client. Now, if they're not a good quality lead, you don't lose all your revenue when you make referrals and when you explain what you do to the person on the phone who you've in some way or another have paid either in time or effort to get that person to call you, right? So what ends up happening is that you're on the phone with someone or someone's on your behalf doing this, and they are not a good fit. Well, you don't just hang up. You don't just like chuck them back into Google search results for their own, deep diving. But you actually can tell them like, here's what I do, just in case, you know, your needs change at any point. And you can also express referrals to them so that you're building sort of through the golden rule, your referral network, because if that person then goes and contacts the referral, you actually make a personal introduction, you know, that's really positive sentiment for you and your community. It also facilitates reciprocation, which immediately builds your growth for your business. So to me, like, that is often overlooked, and a really dead easy thing to start doing today is to make sure that you know that people answering the phone with bad leads are actually helping them. You can even get a positive review, and I've seen this before, for people who weren't a good fit, who you helped steer in the right direction to another firm that's not competitive with you. To write a positive, like 5-star review actually on your website, just because that was a service that you delivered, even though it wasn't an MSP, sort of like, you know, your service list. It's just a nice thing to do, and that can generate positivity.
Yeah, and Maddie, real quick, just on the other slide, I know that there is kind of a cycle in some of these steps, right? Where I don't know if it would be in the response methods where, you know, we already talked about this kind of idea of, you know, drip, you've got to send multiple emails and all those types of things. Where does that fit in here? Is it because, you know, before they maybe move on to qualification, because at some point there may be just a contact, you have to contact them multiple times, then they become a good lead. So
that's really under delayed. So like where you have a follow-up call, an email drip, where you've sort of like qualified that lead to a prospect stage where they are in fact like looking for your services and it's worth the effort to be following up with them. Then that cycle happens under delayed. So there's sort of like a hidden cycle, I guess, within that box. There's another thing though that I will now that you've sort of given me the tee up for this, like there is another bigger cycle that happens here, which is that after the conversion stage, you have this client, right? And let's be honest, not every client that you win is your favorite client. And you're like, maybe I want to inform my intake stage using my experience with this client. And maybe even you have an exit interview or an NPS score or something, right? Which is your net promoter score. If you want to look that up later, it's basically level of satisfaction and likelihood of referring you. What that means is like either you or the client can indicate like this wasn't a good fit. And that should, as you collect data that's actionable there and you see trends, inform how you screen at the outset. And actually, even the channels through which they came, you can say, you know, this channel is actually not generating the clients I really most want to work with. I'm going to dial down that channel and up this other one that seems to be generating clients who are a better fit for me once they've hired me, you know? So that conversion process then comes all the way back, not only to source, but also to the qualification stage. So how do you route your inbound communications? One of the things that often is an initial resistance is setting up a basic IVR, and like first and foremost, not using your personal cell phone number if you're running like a solo or really small business, right? Like no matter how big you are, no matter if you're just getting started, do not ever use your personal cell phone number for running your business. Because let me tell you, like, well, let me ask you, you know, have you ever, and this is a rhetorical, had someone take your personal cell phone number out of their phone once they have it? No. So once they've got it for good, and like, you know, God help you. So screen initially with a business phone number. It's going to cost you like $15-20 a month, right? And just for toll-free, local, whatever you want, it doesn't have to be like super corporate feeling. You can still have like your small business feel if that's you, and set up a basic IVR so that you can route calls appropriately for new clients and existing. Because what we know, especially with MSPs, is that there are going to be people who contact you who are going to need service, which is a certain level of responsiveness, and leads, which is another level of responsiveness. And there are two totally different methods for sort of handling those communications. So you can have, I guess, different phone numbers if you really want to. That's kind of overcomplicated. just have a simple IVR in place so you're routing those calls appropriately to the person who's best suited to have that conversation, because someone on the technical side is not necessarily well equipped or even interested in, selling and making it rain and building new business. So make sure that you have the right people in place. And oftentimes there's a really good way of having outsourced services just plugged into one way or the other. So like we often find ourselves either plugged in at the very beginning where we're screening all the calls coming through and we can transfer to either department, or we're just plugged into the lead generation side and screening potential clients, booking them for assessments, et cetera, or transferring calls. We're not connected to the technical support side because we don't do technical support, right? So you then are only interrupting your technical support team for those phone calls that they are going to directly deliver service to. Or what you can do is you can have a receptionist service that actually takes down the basic information, passes them into your system like Zendesk or whatever PSA you're using, and then you can triage them accordingly based on priority, right? So like what you don't want to have happen is now you've got this receptionist service and they're ringing the whole team and they're interrupting them and you have no idea like what the priority is. It's just like the most immediate newest person calling. So connecting to your systems allows your team to just live within those systems, not have the interrupting calls, and as those tickets come in, like to say like, oh, this is a priority or I need to call this person back. I also really think it's important to have sort of an overflow solution in place, and chat can help stem this because people do visit your website first. But if you do have a small team or even a larger team and you don't have overflow, make sure that people who are contacting you that just randomly called at the wrong time don't get a different level of service. So like, why should one person reach your voicemail when the person who just called got a live friendly answer? That doesn't bode well for consistent online reviews, for service delivery. Just make sure that there is the most consistent response every time so that that's not a factor in whether or not you win a client or your client is happy. Also, in terms of setting expectations, really, really simple, like an after hours voicemail, so that if someone does reach the voicemail, they know that it's either during business hours and when to expect a response, or after hours and you're not going to give a response till the next business day. Like one of the core tenets of like great customer service is just setting expectations. They don't need an answer as much as they often just need the confirmation that they've been heard and that the message was received, and to know when they can expect to hear back from you. So that is a very simple thing. Just during your voicemail, say you've reached us during business hours or you've reached us after hours, and we'll get back to you within whatever time frame you will get back to them in. You can also, I'll say one last thing on this slide with respect to VIPs. One of the things that we see is actually passing price on for outsourced services to VIP clients based on their service needs. So if you know that people who are VIPs need a faster, higher level of service, and you're using an outsourced receptionist service and you want to pass that cost on, we actually see that that's a very effective method of immediately reaping results by saying, if you're a VIP client with this like service tier, you will always get a live answer on the phone. That's a really nice sort of small business offer that feels big business, that isn't extremely costly to you, especially if you're paying, per call. You have a really good cost control on that. Now, I already mentioned the issue with the personal cell phone number, but you also have to be careful. You guys know, I'm sure that, you're implementing these like VoIP phone systems all the time, but we know with some of them, there's latency. And isn't it true that, the general contractor has the home that needs the most repair? Like sometimes we don't look into our own systems when we're so busy helping others. So make sure that your phone system doesn't have latency. And we all know what that means. Like if the person is calling and they hear 8 rings and you've only heard 1, they may actually hang up before you even get to the call. So be careful with that. Like audit your phones, make sure that things are working as you expect or set them up, just as you would for a client. So it's really important to just like make sure that you're taking care of yourself first so that then you can take good care of others. We'll also say that like it's really nice to have phone tracking and analytics, click to call, call rail, whatever you're using, or different dedicated numbers for different marketing channels, because we know that a lot of leads cannot recall where they heard of you, or if they typed in something to, you know, Google, if it was a campaign, organic versus search. If they call you, it's really hard to know unless you have a dedicated number. So thankfully those are, you know, very affordable to add. And I encourage doing so because knowledge is power. And if you know the marketing channels that are generating the best leads for you, then you will put more resources towards converting those leads and being fast to respond to them. And you'll also be able to know where your marketing dollars are best spent so that you're not just like, you know, blasting across all these different channels because you hear your friends are doing it, or you, I don't know, were on some webinar. It's really important that you look into your own data, and the way to get great data is to have, you know, sort of specific channels that you can track each marketing channel and campaign. Also, you have to, you know, kind of secret shop yourself. So if you have a receptionist service, if you have web chat installed, if you have a Facebook Messenger bot or whatever, make sure that like you're going in there and seeing the responses that you programmed in appearing correctly, and not just setting it once and forgetting it. An email drip is one thing. You know, if your products or services or core structure changes of your company, maybe you'll change your email drip, or based on, you know, the highest converting subject lines or email number 3 is better than 2, maybe you move some things around. But in terms of accuracy, if you have these people or bots that are responding for you and they're not delivering the right answers, that is a critical like P0 problem that I would address right away. If they're not pronouncing your business name correctly, if things aren't being relayed accurately with a bot that's been set up, that's something that you need to address right away, because it's probably going to cost you business.
And how often do you recommend kind of doing that check? I mean, you're not going to do it like every day, obviously.
You're not going to do it every day, but I would actually make it into someone's job description or into your own like programmed calendar, probably like once every month. Okay. Unless things are changing really rapidly. Like if it depends on how mature your systems are. If you're just starting out with a new technology or new service, new receptionist, like I would probably check in the very beginning, like every day. And then once you've done that and you're feeling pretty dialed in and you're getting consistent results every time, then you space it out more.
Okay.
Another really important hack in not having a huge back and forth and time wasted with like new potential clients or existing clients is just to let people schedule time with you with online calendars. And Calendly is totally free. There's really no excuse for not using it. It has drastically reduced the number of like emails that I get. And also it's sort of a nice service. I present it as, you know, you're welcome to book time with me and here's my online calendar. Not like, you know, a direction to a new lead. I would never say like, book time with me here, you know. I would make it gentle, but it is a really nice way to have sort of an asynchronous conversation where someone just gets the link and they do it on their own time. They book time with you and there it is on your calendar. And guess what? It's on theirs too. So it's not a matter of like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you at 9 a.m. and then they don't actually put it on their calendar. Well, you know, the onus is actually on you. So this helps to ensure that any people you're following up with are on both your calendar and theirs. Calendly has a really nice little widget. You can actually even plug it into the email. So there's a button click. There's not even like a link off. And you can even set expectations with like really nice signature tools that are free, like Wise Stamp. You can actually embed your calendar into that. In addition to maybe your latest blog posts and social media, whatever. But you can say this is for clients only, right? So like maybe you don't just let people book time with you willy-nilly. You want to do that screening first. And this allows you to set expectations, and people generally follow those guidelines. If you have group meetings, then you can use Doodle, which allows you to see in sum the average availability for everyone, and then pick the time that works best. If you have bulk emails to send, you don't always need like the fancy MailChimp tool. I really like Mailshake and Yet Another Mail Merge. We're coming up to the holidays right now. People are taking time off. Is your office closed? Let your clients know sooner than you think you need to that your office is going to be closed, so that A, you don't have a nightmare of tons of emails coming through at the last minute and people meter their own communications with you. And then also you may get some new business that comes in because they want to get you before you're gone. And you can also use it as an opportunity to encourage people to consider, 2020 business opportunities, ways to improve their security, other services you're selling, etc. Use that one-time email in one of these systems that is actually free, like Yet Another Mail Merge, or cheap, and send out that blast to everyone, not onesie twosie, not like just posting it as a banner on your website. And make sure that you use that opportunity also to, have a marketing message and say, we're closed, but, schedule time with us in the new year to take a look at your systems.
Yeah, and another important consideration, especially on bulk emails, and this was in one of the MSP groups yesterday, was, they had a client who sends out all these emails, and they're starting to get on spam lists, for their email domain, because they're sending them all out from their Office 365 accounts and not using a service. And so, that's another consideration when you're sending out a lot of emails.
It's a huge consideration. Yeah. And I personally just had sort of like my own, like, reaching out to every customer support team under the sun for different email systems, because it's very hard to find a really great plain text cold email solution. I really like Mailshake for this, to be honest. MailChimp is good too, but their footers are just massive, and sometimes I don't want them. And what it allows you to do, though, is to have that unsubscribe button, because a lot of these don't have an unsubscribe button. Like, Yet Another Mail Merge is really good for I'm going to be away for the holidays sort of message to your clients that aren't going to unsubscribe from you. But it's not acceptable. It's not legal to be like blocking can spam laws by not having an unsubscribe for leads. And actually, I encountered this because Front, which is like an email triage support ticketing system, basically, allows you to have sequences, which is a very slippery slope. I love Front. But if you use those sequences for something like, bill reminders, fine, they're not going to unsubscribe. But for lead nurturing, you need unsubscribe, and they actually don't have an option to put it in there. They don't have any unsubscribe management system there. So you have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about bots, there are three sort of flavors here. One is live staffed, one is you staff, and one is bot. And they can kind of come into play in a variety of different ways. We also at Smith.ai, we're adding in sort of an omni-channel solution. So we offer the live staff chat and the bot, either combined or separately. But the really interesting thing that we're seeing is like the ability to, through our API and through build outs, like have our live staff or the bot communicate through the other platforms you're already communicating with clients. So like Facebook Messenger is one, even like, what is it called? That web chat, whatever that other chat app is. I can't remember. But, like there are a million different chat apps, right? And then also all the different chat software. So Intercom, Drift, like whatever it is, you want to basically have everything come together in one place and ping this same knowledge base that is giving answers consistently across all these platforms, and even presenting them to the live staff, so that if you're having a conversation with a live agent, it's actually coming through as the same answer, but maybe more personalized or tailored with that live staff. But they're seeing the same sort of like core response, which I think is really critical, that like you don't want to have a ton of different knowledge bases. You want to have one that's the reference point for all of these different systems, right? It also facilitates translation if you're working with clients in who prefer languages other than English. We see a lot of like law firm clients, for example, needing Spanish language support. So when you have bots on chat, that can actually really help facilitate better responsiveness to their needs, so that they're not like struggling maybe over the phone with someone who may only speak English on your team, or the person who is Spanish speaking that actually will be able to serve them, like they're not available. You can have consistent English, Spanish, multilingual responses on your website, and it happens automatically because of these sort of like NLP tools. I would also say if you have clients who you're going to be selling chat to and they're legal or finance related, you can help them install a disclaimer on their own chat. It's a really important tool for them to make sure that you're setting up secure systems the same way that you would with you know, a computer or internet or whatever phone system you're installing or monitoring for them, that there is a chat that has a disclaimer that says you're not establishing an attorney-client relationship, for example. And you can come in as an expert and say, this tool is going to protect you the same way that like the other tools I've set up for your security protect you. Like this protects you in another way that I know that you need. And that is a really nice service delivery method to say, like, I really understand your business and I'm anticipating this need for you. So make sure that you're looking for tools that do have that opportunity for web chat to have that disclaimer before a chat starts. Another thing that's really important is that a lot of chats, if you're saying, oh, this is going to help you capture more leads for your business, for your own clients and for yours, a lot of chats actually don't require name and email to begin chatting. And what we find is that by requiring name and email and optionally phone number as well, you just have a screening that starts from the very beginning that you're capturing that information. If the person's not willing to give it to you, then what does that say about their interest in actually putting money on the table and hiring you? So be careful, you know, to have that gatekeeping in place. And if you have live agents on the phone or on chat, you can actually give them your online calendar. You don't have to paste it all over your website so that anyone can book you willy-nilly. You don't have to have your knowledge base like, you know, front and center. You want to have your value props front and center, but all these can be accessible to the outsourced resources that you're using to schedule the leads for you and to, you know, make sure that they have access to your system. So they're not just taking a message. If they're chatting with someone on phone or email or phone or web chat or Facebook, they can actually take the next step if they meet your criteria to schedule the appointments. So this is sort of a knowledge base. You know, it's not going to be your blog if you have something on your website with like common questions about your service or security or why should you invest in this new service for your small business when you're talking to new clients. You may find that like it's really nice to have web chat on your own MSP website so that you're not getting bogged down with all these like calls and conversations. People can sort of self-serve and get their own answers through a chatbot that steers them to the right answer if you have a knowledge base online. I know it seems sort of like a big business thing to do, but having these simple answers using something like help docs allows you to really affordably scale out answers that can be an instant response to clients who would otherwise interrupt you with a phone call. If you're not using ZipWhip, I really encourage you to at least open up the opportunity through your VoIP or through ZipWhip if you still have a landline to allow clients to text you. They probably are, and if you're not getting text, you just are blocking them inadvertently. You can also sort of monetize it again as a VIP plan component. So the ability to text you, getting that text-enabled phone number is an unlock at a higher price tier because you know it's going to cost you time and money to be responding to clients who want to get in touch with you in this way. You can offer it as sort of like a service level up. And for clients who you sort of offer this to as like a new technology feature, you're installing their phone or they're resistant to a VoIP phone and they still want their landline, this is a really nice upsell opportunity to have the ZipWhip, which again, if you have them texting and comfortable with text coming in for their business, you can then connect to Smith.ai for responding to those texts so they're not interrupted by the new tech that you enabled for them. When we think about lead capture, I will just say, you know, think about your need for assessing things on site versus on video initially to help get that conversion higher when you actually do have that assessment, and to focus on just a few questions at the very beginning before you offer scheduling for the assessment or for that consult with you. So a receptionist can have these consistent questions that they fill out every time, can be hosted in your marketing automation or CRM, and 5 to 10 questions at most where you are able to indicate, is this a good potential client? I mean, if you're not asking, is this like commercial or residential? What is your budget for this? Or have you worked with an MSP before? Or whatever core questions that you need to ask, where are you located? You know, it's really important to get that core information and also ask, have they heard about you? as early as possible. So if someone searched something on Google, they're only going to retain that sort of memory of their actual words they typed in that very first phone call. Like they're not going to remember it after that. So keep that in mind, to ask the things that are most easily sort of evaporating as soon as possible, that are important for informing, your marketing strategy. What keywords are they typing in? Oh, that client's really great. How do they find us? Oh, Google search is like what, the person who did the intake form responded with. Well, if you don't follow up and ask like, oh, do you remember what keywords you used? Like that is critical information. And speaking of keywords, I will say a recent hack that I discovered that I'll share with you is that web chat is an incredible way of actually having the content come through for informing your SEO strategy. So how people ask questions on web chat is like a search. They're going to type the same sort of like query and words into your web chat as they are into Google search. And that can inform new topics for blog posts and help docs and even like landing page copy. When you can use that to help your clients as well, if you're installing things like that, because you can say to them, this is really important to convey, on your website or whatever, so that they improve their own business search rankings as well. This is just an example of an intake form. I'd be happy to share this deck if you would like to take a closer look at these examples. Lead magnets, where you're filling out forms for people and offering them calculators or assessments of how much a service will cost them or save them money or better protect them through security. Highly effective and very good for organic search rankings, because Google knows that they're useful tools that you're providing, not just capturing new leads. I've talked a lot about scheduling and those tools. I would say that if you're just on your own, Calendly is a free tool to use. And if you want something that has better billing integration and screening, Acuity and Schedule Once are very powerful. It also allows you to have booking with approval on Schedule Once, which basically means that if you're not so comfortable with someone booking appointments, or you have like a personal calendar and soccer matches to attend to for the kids, you can just check the top 3 times that the receptionist was able to secure with a new lead, and then you pick your favorite, and that's when the invite gets sent to them. So that gives you a little bit more control there without like totally stalling the process. It's a no-brainer. I'm not even going to take the time to talk about collecting payments, honestly, because I mean, if you're not taking credit card payments, like it protects you. It makes sure that they're recurring, and it allows every bill to be paid on time because it's automatically triggered, right? So that's absolutely critical. You can automate reminders. You don't have to do the follow-up yourself. It's a total no-brainer. And now you can even offer e-check and ACH. So that is a really nice option. And more with like Affirm and things like that, you can offer payment plans. Maybe there's a really large lump sum cost that people want to spread out over time. You can do that now by plugging into systems like Affirm that make things more affordable because they're just spread out, and you still get paid fully for your potential clients that sometimes just can't afford a single lump sum payment but have a need. With respect to referrals, it's great if you're making these referrals and you're giving your outsourced teams the ability to, have that referral list to refer to, so to speak. But if you put it on your website, then you're generating really quality links to your referral partners. And it also gives you an opportunity to say to that referral partner, hey, look what I did. Would you be willing to do the same thing for me? So that you get those backlinks as well. And again, it's just the golden rule. So we look at the Eisenhower decision matrix really often here. Like, should you do it or should you delegate it or should you not do it? And that really comes down to prioritizing your time and valuing your time as an expense in your business. There is a high opportunity cost to you doing something that is not like at your highest hourly rate worth it, versus delegating it. And then you focus your time on generating revenue and making it rain and managing your team and things that only you can do, right? So prioritize your fixes based on what you've seen here as opportunities for new services and solutions to implement in your business. And think about, just like track your time and think about, do I need to continue doing this myself? Do I need to streamline it, automate it, or outsource it? Like all your tasks, what are you spending your time on this week for the next 3 days? For next week, start fresh, whatever time frame you want, at least more than a day though, so you have a little bit of data. Say like, what are all the things I worked on today, and do I need to actually do them myself? That's really what it comes down to. And based on how time consuming they are, how important and urgent they are, like, should you continue doing them at all, or you personally? And then how do you delegate them or stop or automate? And really like scheduling and payments, lead intake, like those are really time consuming and easily outsourced. Data entry and lead follow-up and all those email nurturing drips are really easily automated. So that's sort of like a carve out time to write the drips and plug them in and get them going. Fine. Scheduling and lead screening and things like that are more follow a process that you outline and then hand it off. Don't do everything at once. Like you're going to get a whole bunch of messy data, even though it's really appealing. Just tackle a few at a time. So add your online calendar, get really familiar so that you can also resell it as a new revenue opportunity, right? And then get familiar with some of these new services, start using them, get intimate with them, figure out the impact that they're having, and then make another change, right? And it's not just quantitative and qualitative. It's not just quantitative, I should say. It's also qualitative. So yes, how much revenue, how much savings, like are your margins improving? Are you more efficient? Is your team happier? Are they working on more technical work and not having to answer the phones anymore? And then are your clients better suited to your firm? Based on how likely they are to refer you, that's a really good indicator there. What your virality ratio is, meaning how many of your clients are referring at least one other client. I mean, obviously, hopefully it would be every client refers at least one, which would be a 1-to-1 ratio. Then there's qualitative. So work-life balance, your stress levels, your sleep quality, like your just satisfaction with work overall, your team satisfaction. These are all things that factor into the success of your business and your value of your time and just sustainable growth overall. So that is basically leaving us with just a few minutes to talk about Smith.ai. I think you have a pretty good sense at this point of what we do. We have receptionists for both phone calls and website chat. And on the website chat, we also have a free chatbot that can run 24/7, driven by Q&A and lead screening playbooks that basically steer potential clients into a conversation that screens them. It can then schedule them, and it can get them on your calendar without any human involvement. We offer that unlimited for free with 5 Q&A and 1 playbook, but unlimited conversations. So the ability to at least kick the tires and try that out is remarkable. If you don't have website chat, I would say that's the #1 thing to do, like right now. It's super easy to install, and you'll at least know, are there really great leads who are coming through on my website, or are they trolls? Do I want to talk to them? If they're really great, do I want to add a live agent? The only way to know is to actually put it out there and see what the engagement is like. So we do a lot more than answering calls. We do the screening and scheduling and follow up on those payments, that credit card that bounced and you need the new number, whatever the case may be. We do inbound calls answered, and then we also make outbound calls. So we will call people using your business number to follow up with them for an appointment that's coming up, an unpaid bill, a check-in, whatever you need. And the result is that hopefully you are able to respond at the speed and the pace and on the channels that your clients are demanding, and that allows you to get more work done at the end of the day, which is your highest value. So you can check out all the reviews online. We do have a code for you, which is $100 off your first month of calls or chats with code MSP Voice. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. That's in addition to our 10 call, 10 chat free trial. And there are no setup or cancellation fees for either of the paid services. We do offer a white glove service for the free chat bot. If you or your clients need that, you can also do it yourself. So this is how to contact us. Our website is Smith.ai, and you can reach me personally at Maddie@Smith.ai, and our client success team at welcome@Smith.ai. So thank you so much for having me, Doug.
We have one quick question.
Sure.
It was back when you were talking about email, and Jeremy says, our email marketing comes out from the president's email address as opposed to like a hello or a generic.
Right.
Now, personally, if you're using a service like MailChimp, you definitely want a real reply to, and it can be a person.
Yes, it can be a person. What we can also do is you can have an email that's sort of an alias that, let's say the person's name is like Pat Barker, right? It could be pat@mspvoice.com, or it could be pat.barker@mspvoice.com. And one is actually his like personal inbox that he's going to personally manage. And the other is actually like more of a team inbox that's actually managed through your PSA or whatever. So, or what I would do through Front. And that means that he doesn't personally have to field all those replies or forward them. It's a really nice solution. You can also, with Customer IO, which is another great email tool, have an email be sent from one and reply tos go to another. So it can be sent from that email, and then it can reply to a team inbox for support or triage.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that goes back to when we were talking about, you don't want to get your email domain, you don't want your domain on spam lists. So you can use the service, but you can still use a reply to, which is a real person, or like you said, a triage inbox, at the company so people can go through it, and you're still not going to run afoul of spam laws.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's really, really critical that you have your terms of service on your site, and that your clients do too, and that you have the unsubscribe link on any communications that you send out. You want to give that option because it also helps you clean your list, right? Like, you don't want a huge email list that you're going to pay for as it grows. Oftentimes these email systems, they charge you based on the volume of your contacts. Like, you don't want a huge email list that doesn't convert because you think your open rate for your emails is 10%, but it could be like 50% if you just scrub out all the people who are never going to hire you.
Yeah. Great. Well, Maddie, thank you so much. It's been very informative for me, and I'm sure it's been informative for the audience as well. I really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Doug. Take care, everyone.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.